Hello, it's Sonia Barrett once again. It's been a little while since I have created a short video. I kind of felt like doing that this morning, probably in light of everything that's going on in the game right now, in the Matrix right now. And I decided to title this uh, The Human Experiment. And the reason why I decided to do that was because I think we forget exactly where we are and what this is because we get caught up in the stories, all the things that define the human experience. And for some that'll go, well, how is this an experiment? Well, we are experimenting with ourselves. We are experimenting with what it is to be human. So what we live are ideas and concepts imagined. And although one might say, well, why would anybody imagine something uh, as horrific as the many things that we hear about today in the media? And we have to really, we can't be wishy-washy about saying that we understand reality and that all things are possible. What we have to keep being reminded of is that to be a human being is about all possibilities being explored. And again, as I've said this many times, you or I may not decide to explore some of those possibilities. But just because you and I may not choose to explore some of these things doesn't mean that the human game is not allowing of any and everything, every possibility to be explored. Someone comes into the game, somebody comes in, and they come in with the intention of experiencing many of these what we look at as atrocities, many of these experiences, whether, being the victim and the victimizer. And we have all experienced, I think, the dynamics of being a victim and a victimizer in many different ways. You might not have gone out and, taken someone's life, but we have all certainly had that experience in one way or another. If we're going to really look at um, our lives, quite clearly and quite honestly. So I think it's very important to keep that in mind, is that as a human being, our job is to be here and to experience all those possibilities. And of course, we have those experiences in this vessel. And again, as I've talked about, I think most of you know, this body is designed to process human emotions, to allow us to feel. And so these vehicles that we're in is allowing us the emotional experience that comes from all of the things that we go through, all of the experiments that we go through. There has to be some sort of emotion to it, some feeling to it. There's something that results from having any of these experiences. And we tend to say that we pray for peace, and we also like to help people. And I don't think we stop and examine what would this concept of reality be like if we did not have this kind of polarity, if we didn't have a reason to pray for peace. You couldn't pray for peace if there wasn't war or chaos. You couldn't have the feeling, you wouldn't know what it would feel like to help someone else, because when we do these things, it actually makes us feel, for lack of a better word, make us feel good. There's a feeling that comes from it that is invigorating. It's a frequency that is it's just a very uplifting feeling when we do something for someone else. We literally process that feeling throughout our whole body. There's an electrical experience that happens throughout our mind and our being when we do something for someone else. And even when we do something for someone else and we complain about it, I always say, well, that's the payoff. The payoff is you like doing things for other people so that you can complain about it and say, what a good person you are and that you've been taken advantage of. So it doesn't matter which way we go. We couldn't have these experiences and these stories that we run, that each of us run. We all have a set of stories, themes that we play over and over, and it's how we live, and that's, we design our character in the human experiment off of these themes, these patterns of who we think that we are. So again, when you look at what's going on in the world, or what we're told what's going on in the world, we can have a diverse emotional responses as to the chaos that is going on right now. And so we have to look at what is our engagement, emotional engagement, in hearing about this information. How do we respond to this information? Is it something for us to talk about? Does it give us dialogue when we go to the office? Is that your one connecting point? Is being able to talk about what goes on in the news, or what's going on in the world? Is that is that what you have? And you have to look at that, because for some people it is what their conversations are about. They don't really talk about anything else. But I think, again, looking at what this kind of hearing about the continuous chaos, or things being done to other people, and people dying, people being killed, people being hungry, it stirs an emotion in us. It stirs a level of frequency then in us, which of course is measured in emotion, our emotional output. And we don't think anything of it. The other thing that we have tied to that is guilt. We feel guilty if we are not feeling bad, and so we feel that when these conversations come up about what's going on, we find that we are pulled into the conversations, and of course supporting that dialogue in the same format that everybody else is doing, is how horrible it is right now, how bad things are at this time. So you go back to, once again, if we didn't have these things going on, what would life be for you? If you weren't engaged emotionally in what is presented to us about what's going on with other people in other parts of the world, what would life be for you? Now, somebody out there is going to hear this and maybe think, well, Sonia is just being unrealistic. People are being hurt. People are being taken advantage of. And I'm not ignoring that by any chance. But what I'm looking at is, what is your emotional response to all of this? How does this impact you as an individual? How are you interpreting this in your own life? Is it a distraction for you, where the chaos of the world has become your full focus? Now, all the things that are happening to various people in different parts of the world, although maybe you might not be going through hunger, you're going through your own experience. Might not be that. You might not be in a war-torn country, but you're going through your own maybe nightmare or in your mind, traumatic experience. So it still comes back to the individual stepping back and examining your own personal life, because um, your own personal space, when you step back and you look at it in this moment, what is it that you would like to do? It's really what it comes down to. How would you like to see your life functioning right now? We're not talking about what's going on in the world. We're not talking about any of that right now. We're bringing it right back to the individual. What is it that I would rather be doing right now? What would I like to do with my life? What are some of the goals that I don't like to use the word goals, but for some people it is goals. What are some of the things that I've thought about doing in my life, and what is it that stops me from doing that? Is it that I get caught up in all of this other distraction? Because if we go back to the science of this again, and we look at some of what we understand through quantum physics, and you begin to look at how your perception, what is your belief system and your perception, is your belief system allowing you to maybe have experiences then that are maybe connecting with much of what we see going on out there? Is that happening in your own personal life? Because that really does it make a huge difference as to exactly what it is that is going on in your own personal life, based on your own perception and belief system about what's going on out there. Is there a tremendous amount of fear going on because you hear about people's houses being broken into, or you've got to, make sure you've got your alarm set up on your house, got to lock everything up. You know, what are you creating your story around? Just period, in your life. The things that are going on supposedly externally doesn't necessarily have to come knocking directly at your door. I mean, that's up to you. It's based on belief system again and choices. And although we want to assist other people, to be able to assist without pulling oneself into the emotional chaos of another person's situation, that can be tricky for some people, because there's almost this guilt that one feels if you are not wallowing in the emotional experience of the other individual. That does not have to be. It's not necessary. We can assist without lending our energy to that experience. And that is indeed if you feel that you need to assist. And what are your reasons for wanting to help? What are your reasons? Sometimes, again, I go back to that, good person thing. I mean, is it because to make you look like a good person, feel like a good person? What's your reasons? I mean, if we can do it just because, with no expectations, you expect nothing in return. It's just in that moment. This is what I like to do. I do that from at times. I will pull up to getting off the freeway, and I pull up to the end of the freeway, and then sometimes you have people standing there with a sign out. And sometimes, depending on that moment, if I feel like giving, I give. I don't do it because I feel guilty or feel bad for that person. I don't, because I realize that this person in this moment is living an experience based on whatever the choices or conditions are that that person came into this life with. And in this moment, I am simply acknowledging that person, the character this person is playing in that moment. And I just choose in that moment to give, not out of pity, but just simply, I just felt like it to give in that moment. So, so if we can begin to do things without attaching ourselves to many of these experiences, it will make a huge difference because you don't realize that the choices that you're making many times are influenced by your emotional entanglement that you created with other people and their situations. You've integrated into their emotional stuff and brought it in back into yours. So things that we just don't really think about. And again, everybody really is on the planet having their own human experience. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't help or you can't help, but just understand why you're helping, when you're helping. Um, it shouldn't be out of guilt and be out of needing to prove anything to anybody or to show that you're a good person or any of that. And if indeed that is the case, because again, you can do whatever it is you want to do. If indeed that is the case, then you wouldn't even get to have that feeling if there wasn't somebody over there having the adverse, situation. If that person wasn't standing on the corner begging, they wouldn't allow me the opportunity in that moment to give to that person. There's so many things that we would not be allowed in terms of growing. So everybody is here playing these character, and even in war, um, the people that are part of the war experience, they are there in that experience for reasons that we just do not know. You might not be there. I might not be part of it. It just says I might not be part of a robbery, or you might not be part of a robbery, but then you have somebody else is you look at the whole thing, and to look at it, um, and then keep saying that everything is possible and that we are all here to participate in the human experience, and there is free will, and we get to choose, we get to be. Maybe the choices were made before we got here, because people go, well, I wouldn't choose to do this. Well, maybe you didn't choose it now. There isn't a conscious choosing right now, but at some point, um, that choice, you participated in that choice, and the choices that those people are having is allowing us to also have the experience we are having. It's like the rich person, poor person dynamic. If we didn't have what we categorize as rich and poor, then we couldn't have rich and poor. Nobody would have the experience of dynamic monetary wealth, and the other person wouldn't have the experience of dynamic monetary deficiency. You have to have something to weigh it against, and to measure, and then we grow and expand. All of these experiments, because that's what they are. They're concepts, they're ideas about what reality could be, and that's what we do. We step into character, and we become so immersed in it that all of this becomes very real for us when you're going through it, when you're experiencing it. And somebody said, well, what about when somebody dies, or you lose a loved one, which is extremely jarring on us in so many ways, emotionally, just really jarring. And part of that is because everything about our world, everything that makes up our world, including that person that is no longer here, is ripped from the construct of our reality. And anything that gets ripped from the construct of our reality, from somebody dying to even losing a job, to even, as I often say, moving the chair from this corner to the other corner, it completely impacts our reality, and it hits us. You know, obviously the degree to which it hits us depends on what those conditions are. Losing someone because that person is in the context of being alive. They played the character of our mothers, our fathers, sisters, brothers, children. They play those roles, and because these bodies are designed to process human emotions, to process that feeling. We take it in, and it just feels like it's ripping at us. But really what's happening is it is ripping at our reality, the construct that we had come to know, and all these characters, all these people in it that makes up our reality. Somebody gets ripped from it. It's traumatizing, extremely traumatizing. So anyway, there's a lot to talk about. We can't obviously do it in these few minutes, but the game is just incredibly dynamic, and there's so much more to it. And even this holiday season, I know there are people that just can't stand the holiday, hate the holiday, or what is Christmas? It's anyway, all the stuff that you hear about with Christmas, and the stuff that's made up on all of that. But I got to tell you, there's two sides to every coin, and when we can learn to process all of these things, without feeling angry about it, that it's Christmas time, then don't participate. Don't go shopping then. And if you're going to shop, change your perception of the idea of shopping for someone because you want to shop for that person. You can look at all of it as a different kind of celebration. I like to look at it as, celebrating my participation in this human game. It's my participation in the experiment, and so I don't get upset with any of it. Somebody wants to go stand in line and, for Black Friday or whatever, that's their experience. So for me, yes, a lot of things are humorous. It is funny because I see the game from just a completely different standpoint. Um, and it is the human experiment. You are experimenting with yourself. You are that is without name, that um, that brings everything to life. That is everything. And here we are in a lower vibration in this body in order to have this incredible, dynamic human experience. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light and freedom in just letting go once again and just being. Be whatever you want to be. You don't have to celebrate the season, or you can celebrate it if you want to. It shouldn't be based on anybody else and what anybody else thinks. But don't spend so much time being angry with the fact that people are celebrating it, what they're doing. They're all having their own thing. This is what they're doing. They're living the human dream. And if they're having fun at it, then leave them alone. That's what I have to say. Anyway, be sure to visit spiritinformed.com and check out the articles. And I'm hoping to add maybe a couple new things, potentially another upcoming retreat. I haven't quite decided on that as yet, but do visit spiritinformed.com. And I look forward to chatting with you again. Take care.